Good afternoon, VinSolutions, and thanks for joining. My name is Kevin Hudak. I'm a Senior Performance Manager here with VinSolutions. I'm both excited and really honored to have this opportunity to share some ideas, reports, best practices that we're kind of going through in these unique times with you. I understand many of the challenges that your stores are going through right now, such as limited staff, selling by appointment only. Heck, some of you may not even have cleanup departments. So I'm talking to some desk managers that are, desking deals, working the deal over the internet and having to clean the car up or help the salesperson clean the car up. So I get it. It's really, really difficult right now to manage your day, to prioritize your day with what's most important. What do I have to make sure I'm looking at right now? Some of you may have joined earlier webinars, and we talked through setting up your VinSolutions for handling this time of reduced staff and updating your templates to talk through, appointment only selling and things like that. So today we're going to talk about kind of the next steps and maybe what we should be looking at, on a regular basis. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about who is your most important customer, right? Who should be that number one priority, that number one customer that we're all over looking at consistently throughout the day, and making sure that we're not letting any customers slip through the cracks, especially with this reduced staff, right? Half the salespeople are there. We got to make sure we're connecting with all of our customers. We're going to talk to you about, still responding to leads. Many of these customers are forced to shop this way. They're forced to shop through the internet right now, and some of them are going to be new to the process. Some of y'all in your stores have people that don't typically respond to leads, responding to leads. Maybe some general managers jumping in here to help out, right? Or finance managers even helping out. We're going to talk about labeling these customers. We're going to teach you a really easy way to create these VIP lists, right? These priority customers, to make sure that we want to follow up once the floodgates open, once we say that shelter in home is over, shelter in place is over, right? A way for you guys to kind of categorize these customers, these opportunities that may be coming in. We're going to remind you to look at these lease prospects. We're going to have, I'm looking at stores daily basis, and I'm seeing hundreds of lease prospects. Many of these salespeople aren't working. They're not following up with these lease prospects. We got to make sure the right message is going to these folks, and making sure that we're pointing them in the right direction, right? Many of these lease prospects are confused, or lease customers are confused right now, not 100% sure what's going to happen next or what they should be doing. Some of them might be calling the 800 number, right? And the 800 number, I know there's, that's on their invoice or on their bill, that should be pointing them back to you guys. That might not happen. And then these shoppers that raised their hand, the shoppers that said, hey, I want to buy a car right before, all of this happened. So I built you a special report that's accessible to you all now. It's really easy to see who fell off. It's categorized by salesperson, right? We want to make sure we're reconnecting with those customers that may have, come to your showroom floors. They ate your popcorn, right? They smelled your cookies, right? They got in the car, they experienced that new car, and many of them are being forgotten about right now. So hope you're excited to dig into the possible opportunities ahead of us. So who are our number one customers? Would we say they're the fresh internet leads? Yes, they're very important, right? Could we be talking about the customers that were on your showroom floor? Right? Well, we have to communicate with these customers before we can ever get them on the showroom floor this time, right? In order for me to set an appointment for somebody to come in, I've got to talk to them. I've got to have some two-way communication back and forth, right? Or is it the customers that have taken the time to respond to you, right? So who are these customers that were responding to you? They're either responding to you by email, they're calling into the store, or text messaging, right? So we have to make sure we're not allowing these customers to slip through the cracks, because some of these text messages and the emails are going to users, they're going to your sales staff that are not working right now. So we cannot ignore them. We cannot ignore those unanswered email and texts, right? So I think it's really important that we come up with a plan to watch these, right? To watch all of these. So some of you may know that we have a report that's in VinSolutions called Unanswered Email and Text Replies, right? So I get it, the phone piece is easy, right? The customer calls into the store, we're able to handle those. But these are the ones that we're not going to be seeing. We're not going to be alerted when Kevin, who's been laid off, is getting a text message back to him, right? So you're going to go into your insights, right there, the number one, and then you'll click into all number two. You'll search the word unanswered, and it'll come up with unanswered email and text replies. And I want you to consider this. Your customers will still be going online and writing reviews. So I think it's really important that we have to, protect our reputation as well as selling cars, right? I'd hate for us to get some kind of a review in this time that says they ignored me or they didn't answer my question or nobody was around, right? So let's jump into this report and review some key areas that I want to make sure I point out. So when I click on the hyperlink to get into the report, it takes me into this page, and as you can see, I have like the dealer, user group, salesperson, assigned user. Those first few columns are all kind of blurred out. But under the customer name, it shows up a blue link, and then it'll take you right to that customer if I click onto it. But I want to point out the areas on this report. We're going to be looking at the task date, right? The most recent emails and texts that we have not replied to will be right at the top. But the ones that I really want to be concerned about are the ones at the bottom right now. Let's start off with working at those that may have forgotten about, right? The people that might not be here replying to text messages. So when I look at this, I'm looking at the task date down at the bottom. I might also point out the lead age on these. Look at the lead age here. Some of them are 596 days or 1,000 days old. So several years ago, 3 years ago, we sold that customer a car. That customer is reaching out to us now, right? Potentially to that salesperson that's not there. So that customer could be saying something like, hey, I want to buy a car. I'm raising my hand, right? So our goal would be, when I get into looking at this report, if your dealership looks something like this, where I have things that are a few days old, I'm going to immediately clean those up, right? And then once I get those cleaned up, I'm going to start watching this throughout the day and making sure these things that come in now, we're responding to right now, right? Because the customer is looking at their device. They're looking at, many different apps on their phone and talking to different dealers. If they're engaged with us, we have to reply to them right now. So as soon as that task comes in, it's best to get back to that customer right away. So I'd also mention that once we get there, the end result, so this is going to default into the last 10 days, right? Our goal would be to have 0 on here. So every single day, maybe multiple times a day, I'm looking at this and defaulting back to making sure there's nothing on here. So remember, they picked you, get them while the customer's engaged. So check out this customer here. This is an example that I'm seeing on a regular basis, right? So this is one of those text messages that I mentioned. Some of you are reading this and your blood is just boiling right now, right? So this task was like 5 days old when I looked at this. But this is a customer that emailed the stores or text messaged the store saying that, hey, I bought a car from you in the past, but now I want to upgrade to something else. Before I shop around, call me. So it's really important that we click on that little task link. It'll reply to that customer and make sure that somebody is handling it. So develop your game plan here and determine, what you're going to do to make sure no customers are slipping through the cracks, right? So maybe your game plan is just to look at this report periodically throughout the day, once a day, every morning, every night before you go home. That would be okay, right? Another option would be to schedule it, right? We can schedule this report to show up in somebody's inbox. So I mentioned before, I'm trying to insert myself into sitting on the desk in a dealership right now. And understanding all of these different things that are coming at me and all these different places. We're trying to prioritize these guys and these gals that are working in the dealership of what they need to be looking at throughout the day. Maybe they need some reminders, right? So we're going to schedule this report so that they show up in their inbox. And now you might consider scheduling this report twice a day, right? You might schedule it 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? It hits the inbox of maybe all of the people that are working today, right? I have 3 salespeople and 2 managers. That's it in my store. So maybe I want to schedule this report to everybody, and that can happen really, really easily. I'm not going to get into how to do that right now. In the attachment that'll follow this webinar, you'll see some instructions on how to handle doing that, kind of what buttons to click to get those set up, and or reach out to your performance manager. Right? Your performance manager, we're happy to help you get these set up. Another option that you may want to leverage your performance manager on would be adding a user into that email and text message received process. So we have a process in there that says, hey, whenever we get a text message or an email, what should happen? We can say, okay, send an alert to Kevin, and every single one of them that come in right now, because right now it's that important, right? Got less activity in here, only a couple of users, so I want to see every single thing that's coming in to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. So I can reply to them now, right now. So now we're seeing website traffic is getting higher and higher, right? So if this website traffic's getting higher and higher, it means that customers are shopping more and more, right? So some of y'all are probably seeing your lead counts are starting to rise. I know many of my dealers are, and they're starting to slowly bring back more salespeople. But I mentioned before, right? Shoppers are being forced to the internet. Many of them are new to the internet, right? They can't just walk into the dealership. They can't drive around from store to store, the small percentage that still do. So we need to show these customers that you care, right? We got to make sure that they understand how important they are, right? You need to still win the race to that customer to respond to them. When I say win the race, it's not just some canned templated email, right? It needs to be the answer to their question, right? It needs to be conversational. What did the customer ask for? This is what they asked for. This is my name, and kind of give them what you all are doing right now, right? So here's a example. Again, one of these ones that I see on a regular basis, these things happening, and I think to myself, what's the true cost of this lead coming into your dealership, right? We pay a lot of money for advertising just to get people to talk to us. So when somebody does talk to us, they actually do ask us a specific question, and we totally ignore them, right? What are we telling our customer here? So in this particular situation, you see where the customer asks down in the bottom here, does the car have heated seats or remote start? Right? We reply with, thank you for your inquiry. When would you like to come in? Right? We don't talk about we're, still selling by appointment only. We don't talk about that we're, sanitizing our vehicles before and after. Maybe we say some things about, we're happy to bring the car to you, right? So if these customers are engaging with us, we absolutely have to make sure we answer their question, respond appropriately. And if we consider the response time on this particular lead, we're over an hour, right? That customer's already moved on an hour later, right? They're potentially cooking dinner with their family, and the next thing you know, they're going to look at this the next day in their email and be like, I'm not as interested as I was yesterday, right? Got to catch these folks when they're in the moment. So consider, what are you doing differently in these templates? So are you doing driveway appointments, possibly paperwork at home, right? Are we leveraging FaceTime or Zoom meetings now or go-to meetings now, right, with our clients? I think it's really important to try and get them to embrace this, because many of them are being forced to do that. Many of these folks were never forced to work from home, and now they are. And now they're being forced to get on these go-to meetings. Before, they hated looking at themselves on the camera, right? We've all done it. We look at that FaceTime for the first time, ugh. And then now it's second nature. You're like, I look pretty good today on this thing, right? So I think it's important to take advantage of these times that we're going through as a possible way for future business, right? Developing good habits now that can make us more efficient later, right? Imagine if I could have a TO over FaceTime right now, right? Because they're forced to do it, but then 6 months from now, we're doing the same types of things, and our managers become more efficient, and we're selling more cars through the internet and so forth. So I think it's really important that we just, we be prompt on our responses. By all means, be respectful, right? These customers took the time to reach out to us. We have to make sure we reach back to them in a timely manner and don't ignore what they said to us, right? If a customer came up to you on the showroom floor and asked you if the car had heated seats and remote start, we wouldn't ignore that question and answer with something else, would we? So let's talk about how we're going to kind of prioritize your customers. So your customers are coming in, they're submitting leads. Some of these folks are okay with this whole process. They're okay with I'll come in. Yes, I want to make sure I stay 6 feet away from everybody. I want to make sure there's only so many people in your showroom floor. We're gonna assure the customer that we're taking those steps, right? And some of these customers will come in, but there's going to be a large percentage of the customers that aren't going to come in, right? And they're telling you that they don't want to come in right now. They're going to wait for this to pass. They're going to wait for shelter and home to pass, right? So what are we doing right now to let those customers know, to give those customers confidence that they're a priority in your store, right? Well, one way would be, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm going to put you on this special list, right? The special list that we're going to create. And when the doors open, you're going to be one of the first customers to contact. We're going to contact you. Now, when I think of this and I tell my customers this, I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to pull up some shared spreadsheet and try and track them that way. It's clunky. I got to type in all of the info. It's not very efficient. Well, one way you can do it in VinSolutions, which is really efficient, is to go in here under the customer note section from your customer dashboard. So you see where it says customer note there, I'm going to type in something like priority, #priority, or hashtag out the door numbers, right? Maybe I gave a customer out the door numbers and they're like, man, I love this, but I'm not ready to commit yet. I'm not giving you my credit card yet, right? But I want to, but not yet, right? So how am I going to keep track of that customer if 2 weeks from now the doors open? Doors open in 2 weeks and I have all of these customers that I need to contact that we've been working hard to stay in front of for these last 5 or 6 weeks that we're doing this. So through the customer note search, you're going to put that word priority or hashtag priority or maybe a handful of other ways to kind of track or label your customer as far as, who's most important versus, phase 1, 2, 3, however we're going to think about it. Another reason I like doing it through this customer note is that you can do it through the mobile app. So the mobile app, we have many of our customers. Our salespeople are at home working from home right now, right? So if they're working from home right now, odds are they're not sitting in front of their computer all day long. But they don't necessarily need to be because they have the mobile app. They can do almost everything they need to do as a salesperson from home through this mobile app, including me logging a phone call in VinSolutions saying that this customer's really interested but not ready to go. And then they click this little edit memo button from the app, type in hashtag priority, and then we'll be able to search for these customers later. We're going to build this later, right? Think of it also as like, when I'm talking to these customers, maybe you teach them back in the day, we had this approval code, right? Customers got these approval codes on a mailer, right? And they had to come in with this approval code and thought this was a real thing, right? When it was in turn like a marketing thing. So maybe we're putting something along those lines. Hey, I'm going to add you to our priority approval code is this, right? And then give them some type of a code or something, right? So now that you know where to log this and some ideas on how you would use it, let me show you where you would go to actually look for these customers, right? So many of you are probably familiar with advanced search. Advanced search, we're just going to hit through a quick click path here would be, right? CRM, customer drop down, advanced search. And many of you may have never even noticed it says customer note search kind of near the top, where right underneath the customer name info and stuff like that. So that's where you're going to put this priority or hashtag priority or whatever your dealership decides is the keyword or words that we want everybody on the same page using, right? And then once we search for those customers, this is the second piece that we can do with this. It's not just pulling up a list, it's actually creating action in VinSolutions, right? So from here, I'm able to once I search for all of my customers, number one. Number two would be I'm going to select all of the customers that I have pulled up. Number three, I'm going to create a phone call task, right? So think of this. I don't just have this list that I'm going to print out and say, salespeople, go do these things, right? You could be much more efficient by just searching, clicking a couple buttons, and then you'll have this create task will pull up on the right side of the screen. And from here, I can make it a phone call task. I can make it an email task. I can select it to go to the sales rep, or I can select it to go to the BD agent. This task title that's right next to the number 4, that's where we're going to put the notes in that what the task reasoning is, right? So I think of this task title as similar to like if a salesperson came up to me at the showroom floor, right? Showroom desk, the sales desk. I'm like, okay, Mr. Customer or Mr. Salesperson, go say this to the customer, right? And we would teach them what word track to say. Kind of the same thing here, right? Engage during COVID, new incentives are out, call and upgrade or whatever that could be, right? That would be a really quick and easy way to do it with limited setup involved. Something else you can do, you can take it even a step further and you could build a phone template, right? A phone call template can be built into your VinSolutions. So when you do create this task, we send over some not just a one-liner in what to say, we're going to give them a whole script to say. So you would select the template that you want to see. And I have a really great example of a template here that I've heard of some dealers having a lot of success with, right? So this template is kind of the deferred payments type of a call, right? We're going to call your folks. We're going to offer, see if they still have the car with that same payment, right? We're going to offer to call their bank together with them, right? We're going to tell them that our lenders have a program that they can delay your payments, right? Do you think your lender, or, we're going to tell them, I see your lender is such and such financial. I have their number with me right now. Maybe we'll call together and I'll kind of walk you through this conversation with them. And then you might also, then you're going to offer this alternate idea, right? Where we're going to say, well, hey, I have plenty of financial banks right now that are deferring your payments as long as up to 8 months. So if you are being affected by COVID, maybe we go down that route, right? And we're able to get this payment deferred for several months. And you're going to get a new car with new technology and all of those things, right? So this phone script is going to be part of those after notes, if you will. So after the webinar, you'll receive a link, and in that, you'll be able to take a look at this phone script and kind of insert it into your dealership and make it work for your dealership. Now, I also, again, reach out to your performance manager if you need help with this or want some additional ideas. We're here to help you with specifically things like this, right? And now earlier I mentioned lease customers, right? We talked about the lease customers and how we can't forget about those folks right now. We gotta catch them before they call the 800 number because they've already sent you an email, they've already sent you a text message, but nobody replied to the customer. So the customer's confused, they don't know what's going on, right? So let's go take a look at what we need to be doing or what we need to be thinking about with lease prospects, right? So customers are definitely confused. You have customers that are not sure what your specific manufacturer might be doing. Some manufacturers aren't saying anything to their lease customers and they're relying on you as the dealer to reach out to them. And now you as the dealer don't have the manpower to reach out to them right now. So these customers don't know what's going on. They might be getting mixed signals from your process that's in VIN, right? You have processes that are telling them to come into the showroom floor and 60 days out or whatever the case may be and not really being relevant to this time. And consider some customers might not need a vehicle right now. So they're thinking about not having a vehicle and possibly turning this thing in. So we need to consider how we're staying in front of them, right? So this is a familiar screen to many of you here. It's called your Lease Prospects, right? So you're going to go into CRM, customers, Lease Prospects. It's been here forever, right? It's a staple inside of VinSolutions, really important. We need to be looking at this on a regular basis, right? So when I look at this screen here, this report, on the left-hand side, the blurred out names are all of our salespeople, right? All of these salespeople have leases coming due in a certain amount of, and some of these folks, remember, they're laid off, right? So there could be phone calls that are sitting there waiting to be made, or confused customers that are connected to them, right? Also consider looking at the very bottom right corner of this report. It talks about 149 customers. We have 149 customers down here that leases are coming due in the next 6 months. So we're going to have some incredible incentives that are coming out from manufacturers, right? That should get you really excited about the amount of opportunity that's there, about the amount of customers that we're going to be able to upgrade early. Now, consider the customer that might turn their car in, right? So the customer that turns their vehicle in early. So they may have turned the vehicle in last month, or turned the vehicle in this month, or might turn the vehicle in next month. And they're still being, they're starting to work from home more and more. More and more of our customers are going to be working from home. And it might be for the next 90 days or so. So if I'm a consumer, I might start considering, well, do I really need 2 cars? My wife and I we're both working from home right now. I don't need to have this extra car payment. So think of the amount of risk right now with those particular customers. These customers are going to be considering, all right, I might not have a car payment for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, right? That could be up to maybe, $500 car payment a month. Maybe that's $2,000. Maybe they start considering, wow, $2,000. I can potentially put that into down payment on something a little nicer. I've always wanted this Lexus, right? I've always wanted this Acura, right? Maybe they're going to upgrade from whatever you're selling to the next level up. So you have a huge risk factor going on here for those folks that we need to be prepared to watch. So think of kind of that labeling process I mentioned before about labeling customers hashtag priority, hashtag out the door numbers, or hashtag lease turn in, right? Hashtag lease turn in. I need to start watching that list closely and staying in front of those folks. And remember, your lease end process doesn't keep going when the lease is over. So if these folks turned in their car and they didn't buy something else yet, there's nothing going to be firing in VIN that says, hey, stay in front of this car. So it's kind of a manual thing you all need to consider if you're seeing a lot of that going on. So in short, don't forget about your leases. I know we're typically all over them, but let's focus on those customers that are coming due now that may have turned their lease in. Label those folks, track them, and make sure you try and mitigate the risk as best as possible to release and keep that release retention number high, right? So other customers we need to make sure that don't slip through the cracks are these folks that were in market before this all happened, right? So I went in, I built a report for us. It's called Urgent Active Leads. I've been talking about this for several weeks now, but how important it is the folks that raised their hand right before this all happened to make sure that if that salesperson is laid off, we're still looking at those leads. We're still looking at those customers, right? We're still educating those customers on how we're conducting business now and making sure we're putting them in the right segment, right? Or the right bucket, or we're labeling that customer correctly, right? Are they truly a priority, or were they just kind of shopping before this all happened, right? So to get through to this new report, you're going to go to Insights, go to the search box where it says Urgent Active Leads. And then this particularly, you can click the little heart, would be number 4 over here. That'll make it be part of your favorites. And then click on Urgent Active Leads. So these folks, I like to describe these customers on this list as they're all of your opportunities, but the list can be somewhat overwhelming, right? I look at this list here and I see under the column customer 514. Well, Kevin, I just told you that I have limited time here, right? I don't have time to go through 514 active customers that might have raised their hand beforehand, right? So I want to teach you kind of how to look at this report to kind of massage it if you don't have a lot of time. And let's say I am a GM or a general sales manager. I only have 5 or 10 minutes that I can invest into this report today because I'm investing 5 and 10 minutes into these other areas that you just talked about, Kevin, Lease Prospects, unanswered emails, right? I'm going to invest my time a little bit in each one of them every single day until I get everything accomplished, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to manage by exception, right? So I'm going to take a look at this data and I'm going to look at this last customer contact column here. So this is the last time we had two-way communication with these folks. And as you can see on this first salesperson, right, each gray line represents a different salesperson. So this top section has 13 customers in there. And those 13 customers we can see on the 21st, as it looks like that's probably the time that the salesperson was told they were not working any longer, right? And guess what? That's the very last time we've attempted contact with that customer. So you can see right, the column to the left is last attempted contact. So that's the one that I want us to look at and make sure that we're not allowing those customers to slip through the cracks. So have I logged a phone call? Have I logged an email? Have I logged a text message in VinSolutions, right? That's what I'm looking at. I want to make sure that we're staying in front of them. So I can easily identify things like, if I look at the column to the right where it says previous customer, it's showing me if they've purchased a vehicle or not. And I just scan through that list, purchased one vehicle but never serviced. I might consider calling that customer. All the way at the bottom of the report, there's a customer that purchased two vehicles and has had service, and we've not reached out to them since the 26th. I'd say that's a really important customer. So I may leverage that data in the previous customer section to be one of those ones that are really important that me as a general manager, general sales manager, are going to make sure that we're going to get into and look at, right? And we're going to make sure that somebody follows up with them. And if it's that somebody is we don't have anybody else to do it, maybe it's you then. Maybe it's you, Mr. General Manager, you general sales manager, desk manager, right? Let's put our salesperson hat back on and get in here and dig in and reach out to these folks. And if you notice, all the way to the right, it says customer dashboard link. That's where we're clicking the link, and it's taking me right to the customer's dashboard. It makes it really easy for you to log phone calls and emails. And I would really, really push text messaging, right? So you can see that the column to the left, can this customer be text messaged? If it's got a yes in there, you know, build a quick template that says, hey, I'm the manager, you're important, we're in business, here's how we're conducting business, are you still in the market? Something like that, right? Maybe that was a little long, right? But just something short and sweet that says, customer's important, I'm a manager, how can I help, right? And then you can really efficiently fire off 10, 20 text messages in less than 10 minutes if you're going through this and analyzing this data efficiently and correctly. All right, so kind of some things to take away, some things that you all need to consider when you leave this webinar today and you go back to the store, right? So number one, make sure you're connecting with your performance manager, schedule an appointment with them. We're here to help you go through these things, prioritize your day, find out what's really working for you all in the store, what might not be working for you in the store, and then determine a plan, right? We're going to make sure that you have a plan for those customers that are reaching out to you and only you, right? If customers are replying by text message or email to us, it means they're probably not clicking buttons online, sending off leads to multiple different places. We got to make sure that those are number one priority for us, right? We're doing something to ensure that nobody's slipping through the cracks, and that plan probably has to include monitoring that unanswered email and text message reply report. So important. And hopefully you take this thinking and you know that kind of merges into every day. Those are good practices for every day after this is all over. We want to talk about staying in front of those customers that are not unsure about your leases, especially the ones that salespeople aren't there right now, and then really take a look through that urgent active leads, those urgent active customers, right, that are sitting out there that we've been ignoring since this all happened, right? So work through those plans. Hopefully you can leverage some of these tools and make you a little more successful here, and build for record months ahead, right? So a lot of these things that I'm talking about are labeling your customers, are just setting yourself up for success once the floodgates open. Remember, we're going to have lots of inventory out there. Manufacturers are going to have to move these cars as the new 2021s come out, right? So we're going to have record months ahead once this is all done. Just make sure you're one of the dealers that are setting yourself up for success to have those record months. So thank you all so much for joining. Again, you'll receive a link after the webinar that'll have access to this PowerPoint, to the deck today, as well as additional instructions on how to schedule that unanswered email and text reply report. Thank you all so much.